Greetings and salutations. Divine all blessed peace and love, joy and prosperity to you and yours. Greetings. Maciel, thank you so much for joining us again on tonight. Come on in. Sister Tony will not be with us tonight. I'm not sure which co-hosts are going to check in with us this evening, but we will certainly have another fulfilling hour of revolutionary Hoodoo New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. I am your host, the Divine Prince, Ty Mecca, Pan-African spiritualist, practitioner, author, and advisor, Elagul, Oloye, Hoodoo, Obeya, Okua, sharing with you in all things spiritual, mystical, metaphysical, cosmic, evolutionary, revolutionary, healing, and holistic from a Pan-African Hoodoo world spiritualist perspective, understanding that all is truly and indeed a blessing. If you can just see beyond the veils, for it is all Brother Solomon, there you
Yeah,
are.
brother. How you doing?
Great. All is a blessing in yourself.
Always a blessing, man. Always. Cold. It's cold all of a sudden.
Yeah, it is. We went from what 75 at night to now we're in the 40s and the 50s again.
Yes, Lord.
Yes, indeed.
Cold weather.
And it can be hard on your AC and your heat and all
Oh
that kind
yeah.
of stuff. I have a
Oh
little
yeah.
fire going tonight,
How's
but
it
we
going
will.
tonight?
Yes, yes, but it don't stop nothing that you may.
Oh no. Oh no.
Uh, the loud music just stopped about 5 minutes ago, and I think I heard a brass band out there. So that carnival celebration, it don't end here, no matter what.
Oh no.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. We certainly give honor to the ancestors and those who came before and laid the foundation upon which we all now stand. We show honor and reverence to this, what I call Red Day, Osei Shango. And to those who know, if you know, you know, today is Osei Shango, and we certainly acknowledge Shango and Oya and the spirits of thunder and lightning, wind and rain, and sudden change and transformation. And certainly we are now experiencing a variety of changes and transformations. If not personally, certainly we are now experiencing them collectively as a community, as a nation, as a planet. And so we want to always, much like we would our hygiene and our diet and health, we must maintain spiritual balance, spiritual fortitude. We must maintain our work. Many of us have come out of a formerly religious Christian church community, and this is more than just showing up on Sunday. This is more than just showing up for choir rehearsal or for your weekly Bible class, and then sort of resorting back to the lives that you always stayed Aboriginal, African religious and spiritual traditions, indigenous and Aboriginal spiritual traditions. It's more than just a religious practice, something that we do consistently, but it's our life. It is our lifestyle. It is our very being. It is in what we eat, what we drink, what we say, how we live, what we wear, and how we walk. And so our mission to combat the miseducation that has been projected upon voodoo, as well as other Aboriginal and indigenous practices and traditions, must be forwarded with our demonstration, with our work, and with the same degree of commitment and consistency to your newfound past and understanding. Though for many of us it's not newfound, it is indeed a critical part of that DNA code that just could not be hidden or covered. And so we must do the work to educate and re-educate ourselves and others about the power and the truth of what voodoo is. And so our National New Orleans Voodoo Day this year will be held April 5th and April 6th, 2025, National Voodoo Day that takes place in Ouida, Benin, every January 10th. And certainly the events of Ouida, Benin Voodoo Day were created to not only show honor and reverence to their own ancestors and the practice and the traditions there. Thank you for your patience. You all know this AT&T Wi-Fi hotspot is inconsistent. I just try and catch it as soon as I can so we don't lose much context to the conversation. But certainly the Voodoo Day in Ouida was designed to not only show honor and reverence, certainly to their own historic history and tradition and heritage, but also to welcome and invite those of us in the Pan-African diaspora to return home and participate and reacquaint ourselves with the motherland, our ancestral roots, and the tradition that is indeed, and the tradition that is indeed voodoo. So we welcome you, one and all, from wherever you may be listening to me from right now, to visit our website at www.vodouday.org. That's V like Victor, O, D like David, O, U, D like David, AY.org for more information, to become a part of this event, to participate in the event. And certainly we appreciate your sponsorship, your donations, and your support. We can grow this event in comparison to our sibling event in Ouida, which draws around 2 million people a year to this event. And so our goal, our hope is to grow this event here for us in the diaspora to the same level of competency and success, and really reinvigorate that power that is innate and inherent to us as passed down through our ancestral lineage. We haven't forgotten. It's not lost. It's no longer uh, necessary to hide or keep it secret, but that very vibration, that very message is pushing forward through many of our DNA ancestral memories. Certainly, that was the case for me. Solomon may very well have had a similar shared experience of having the spirit realm and the ancestors make a strong demonstration in our lives that drew us to this path and into this tradition. Many of you knew I grew up in the evangelical apostolic environment, first being sort of born into a Baptist, Black Baptist, spiritualist church environment. And then somewhere, I guess we were about 12, we went and visited a neighboring church community. And I'll never forget, a sister got to shouting and speaking in tongues, and the most heated political meeting that I had ever witnessed at that age at church was held as a result of that. And there were those who were, disputing the demonstration, disputing the scripture, trying to make sense of, what was happening and what it does it mean for our community. And not very long after that, we migrated, I guess you could say, to a apostolic church in Washington, D.C. Many of you are familiar with Bishop C.L. Long from 9th and O Streets in Northwest Washington, D.C. He's made his transition, but certainly many of those of you who are around my age are familiar with this man and that community. And a sibling church community to that was Bishop Bonner in New York City, I believe, the Church of God in Christ. And it was at that time that, we made this transition, and I'm now becoming 13, 14, and I'm piecing together the pieces of what was already foundational to the Black spiritualist church experience that I had with the manifestation and the move of spirit. But now in this apostolic environment, it was a very different thing. The laying on of hands, the faith healing, the casting out of devils, certainly the speaking in tongues and prophecy and the prophetic word, and the Terry services and the all-night foot washing services. But in that environment, I saw the voodoo. I felt the voodoo. I was experiencing the voodoo. And equal to that time was the time that I spent in the Smithsonian Institute, in the libraries, in the study before I left home of Aboriginal and indigenous cultures in Africa. And I was beginning to put the pieces together. So after leaving home at 14 and being a teenage runaway on the street, I had the blessing to be mentored by elders, priests and priestesses, and babalaos and ogans and mambos from a variety of diverse Pan-African traditions, and began my initiation into the practices in my teens. So by the time I was in my early 30s, voodoo was my life, but still was not my full-time ministry. It really took the events of Hurricane Katrina and the will of Oya to really send me into the direction that I'm operating in now, which is Voodoo Worldwide and the ministry of voodoo and Aboriginal and indigenous traditions, particularly those that affect us here in the U.S. and those in the diaspora as a result of the Middle Passage. And so we live in a time now, unprecedented time for sure, but a time that has symptoms and activities that are familiar to many of us who have been a part of many other movements. I was once a part of Mas Mariam with Farrakhan, and I sat and listened and was a minister under Farrakhan for many years during my teens and my early 20s. I've been a part of the Rastafarian movement. I've been a part of many Black liberation organizations in my years and my travels. Leaving the DMV at 14, I had the blessing of seeing most of the country, almost every state in the country. I visited and in many cases resided in for at least 6 months or more, and gained a really good understanding of our people, our communities, and what we're really up against here in the U.S. And we're being reminded of what we may very well be up against right now in this season. we talked on a previous show about um, Parable of the Sower, Octavia Butler, and the influence that book had on my finally leaving Los Angeles, California for the last time, and making the conscious decision to move south and ingrain myself in my culture, Southern culture, Black culture, primarily for first safety and security, and the fear of what Parable of the Sower and Octavia Butler saw coming, and many other predictions of what the world, would look like in the future. And it is what motivated me to pack up and move to where my people are, and then ultimately to where the spirit of my people resides, which is New Orleans. Certainly, my 2 years in Atlanta, my people are there. Some of my people are there, but it was not the home going that I anticipated. New Orleans fit every bullet point on my priority list in terms of what I felt was most appropriate and most beneficial to me. Certainly, we can demonstrate and operate in E5 and we live, anywhere we reside. Certainly, the practice becomes you. You are the practice, and you carry that. Am I back? Can you hear me? Yeah. So certainly, the community and the grassroots community has played maybe the biggest role in why I'm still in New Orleans, even post Hurricane Katrina. So I invite you all to get serious about your practice. Don't be a Sunday morning religious person or a Saturday Sabbath person or Friday Juma person, and then neglect our our pact and our commitment to God and the ancestors every other waking moment of our existence. And know that now is the time to not just do that self introspection and, trying to find our own way and our own spiritual walk and destiny, but now it's time that we must return to community, much like we did in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s to overcome many of the challenges placed upon us by the oppressive regime, the oppressive society that we coexist in, that we live within. I don't believe this is a time where we will have an option to kind of sit it out and remain silent and see what happens. I'm not disputing the position that many Black women have taken um, post the election. Uh, you know, the Black women have fought for our neighborhoods, our communities, our families, our society, and our nation since its inception. So I understand the position that they are taking right now, that they're not going to protest, they're not going to march. It's time for someone else to pick up that mantle. And certainly, if the YNs are going to do it and are going to do it legitimately, uh, I'm behind you 100%. But there is something for all of us to do, regardless of age, race, ethnicity, class, status, geographic location. It's something for all of us to do as it relates to what we are experiencing right now in this country and in this world. And so calling on our ancestors is our first line of defense. in all things. We understand that the black woman is God. The black woman is God is not just some voodoo black nationalist philosophy, but indeed has been supported by DNA, ancestry, that all humanity evolved from the womb and the cradle of Mother Africa. Therefore, the black woman is God. And we inherit that God gene, that divinity within each and every one of us, within our DNA coding and our ancestral memory. But God speaks in a soft, still voice, requiring us to be still, to be quiet, to be meditative, to perform ritual prayer and application. And then we still might not always hear that soft, still voice of God with clarity. And so we seek direction from our leaders and our elders and our mentors. But your ancestors who exist in the very DNA ancestral memory of your blood will see you crossing the crossroads and will see the truck coming and will push you to the curb. That curve is the illusion of the issue, the problem, the block, the complication. But it's often, if not always, your ancestors trying to get your attention, to push forward the warning, to push forward the protection, to push forward the goals that we seek to create and recreate that mirror our best interests. So the ancestors can be more aggressive than God chooses to be. The ancestors can show up in our health, can show up in our class, our status, our behaviors, those pesky generational curses that many of us have worked to disconnect and cut. And so without our ancestors, we have no first line of defense for whatever is being projected at us, for whatever is certainly coming. Even before we get into the realm of Loa and deities and Orisha, it is your ancestors, first and foremost, that are your foundation, that are holding you together and pushing you forward to those things that are in your best interest. And yes, ancestors can get involved in your love and relationship, your friends, doing our job to ensure that we are protecting our peace and our space. Your ancestors certainly will do that, will step in and do that for you. I can tell you how many readings and divinations that I do in the Department of Love and Relationships, where the ancestral footprint is strong on the board in terms of determining the health of that relationship. And just like we can't, our arms are too short to box with God. That was the name of that Broadway show back in the 70s. Certainly, our arms are too short to box with the ancestors. And the ancestors are going to have their way. So we give honor, we give thanks, we give acknowledgement to those who came before, those who endured, those who created a foundation for us to stand upon today. And we take that charge and we now choose to stand up and carry on the fight and carry on the tradition, not just for ourselves, but for others in the community and ultimately for the planet. So we invite you to participate, to become a part. And for those of you who are local, we have Creole class, Haitian Creole class every Monday evening. Every Wednesday evening, we have Haitian Voodoo choir rehearsal. Saturday night, we have full-on Haitian Voodoo ceremonies. And certainly, we still gather and meet on Sunday afternoons at 3 in Congo Square at the Ancestral Tree. So come out, get involved. There's certainly no need, no reason for you to feel alone or isolated. in your journey, in your practice, in your development. Certainly those who are listening nationally or even internationally, we can be available to you by way of Skype, by way of Zoom, by way of email and phone. And certainly we invite you to come here when you're certainly able to do so. I have 8 Airbnbs now right here in my neighborhood. So there's somewhere for you to stay in a community to embrace you as you come along. There's a lot going on in the world today, y'all. It's a lot going on. And this state of isolation and me, myself, and and I'm just going to stick to myself, that's not going to work moving forward. I believe wholeheartedly that it was a artificial condition to begin with. We have been conditioned into that place of, me, myself, and I. I can't trust anybody, not even my family, my friends. I'm just going to do it my way. That has all been by design. And certainly when we need to come together and unify, coming from that place makes it challenging, makes it difficult. Many of you can't get along with your family. So the idea of surviving, let's say without water, without power, without food delivery, some of the things that we endured during the COVID-19, um, some people were left on their own in that scenario, didn't have family, friends, community support, to rely on and to lean on. So we've got to rebuild our sense of village, our sense of community, our sense of coming together. And certainly in this space that we call voodoo, um, there is no isolated practitioners in voodoo. There is no authentic, isolated practitioners and adherents of voodoo. Much like you church folks believe that, gathering together is one of the protocols for your religion, it's the same in ATR. We share and confer our shade upon each other. And so we gather to increase and magnify our strength, our power, our defense, our goals, and those things that we seek to manifest for ourselves and for each other. And certainly, what righteous soul desires something for themselves that they don't desire for others. So the peace that you desire, the financial uh, wherewithal that you desire, so too do others and your family, in your community, in your peer group desire. So there are many areas where we must begin to come together. We talked about food, growing food, and developing food co-ops in your community. You might only be able to grow one or two or a handful of items, and your neighbor might have chicken, or goat or other necessary uh, um, supplies that you can utilize without going into the system. And we should begin to develop these behaviors before we're forced to. Right now, we're going through this egg crisis. I personally don't really eat eggs. I rarely buy eggs. But for many of you, eggs is a regular staple, and $10, $14 for a carton of eggs is ridiculous. I asked the question, how many of you all know a chicken farmer? We have people right here in the city of New Orleans with chickens running around the neighborhood. But many of you live in the suburbs, live in the rural areas, live in these cities with these acreages of green lawns, and you're not growing anything to eat. You're not producing anything that you can utilize in your spiritual practice. And you're running to the botanica to get commercial products, many products of which aren't even authentic to the tradition. We can all slap a label on a candle We can all dip incense and bag that up and put a label on it. We might even be able to grow a few herbs and bag that up and sell that. But it requires so much more for survival in this tradition. It requires so much more for survival in terms of what you're eating and what you're drinking and how you're living and maintaining your health. So this is a time that we must begin to come together. I certainly appreciate those who've chosen to gather together with me here today in this sacred space. Those who are joining me in the chat, thank you so much, Elder Reggie. Um, Maceo, thank you so much for being with me live in the chat. And for those of you that I can see who are in Facebook, my Facebook groups, my Facebook pages, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, my EarthCam page, certainly appreciate you and those who are listening and viewing from my website. Mayfield says there is a rooster and a chicken farm in Columbus, Ohio. Everywhere. Okay. Be careful with stealing other people's chickens now, but I hear you, and I certainly understand. Um, Surprisingly, we don't hear about that a lot here in the city. Even where people have chickens, own chickens, or even neighborhood chickens, people for the most part don't fool with them. Much like people don't really fool with cats here in New Orleans. Cats are, I think, a part of the city's rodent pest control plan, and so the pest control will come out and what is it, neuter the cats and make sure the cats are well, but they will return cats to the neighborhoods in which they are picked up in to continue to contribute to the control over the nutria and the rats and the possums that we have in the city. But even with that, the problem with that is you have uh, lovely people in the community who feel a need to feed these cats commercial food, and often the chickens end up eating this commercial food. The opossum end up eating this commercial food, and then the cats kind of stop doing their job. But we all have space. We all have opportunity to contribute something. To contribute something. Now, many of you are listening to me from big cities. You don't get a pass. I lived in Chicago many years. I've lived in New York City. I lived in Atlanta. I've lived in cold climate regions. I grew up in the DMV. And so you learn your seasons, you learn your climate region, and you learn what's hardy, what will survive where you are, and you start planting early in the spring and harvesting, and then you can dry and store and can your supplies for that portion of the year when you're unable to grow. I also know that there are community gardens in many of these big cities. I used to volunteer and be a part of a community garden on the west side in Chicago before I left there in the 90s that fed a shelter, that fed a sort of a facility for people coming out of the hospital or medical conditions, but were also dealing with homelessness and a lack of housing. Also fed the cats. I'm sorry, I also fed the community. I was distracted by Maceo's comment. I didn't say the cats were rodents. I said that there are people in the communities that will feed the cats commercial cat food, um, and then the cats will stop eating rodents, and then they're not contributing to the pest control at all. Um, you say they also run the city in Columbus, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's a part of the city's idea of dealing with pest control as well. I find in some cities, pest control will come out and get all these animals, particularly in the suburbs. But here in New Orleans and other locations similar to this, they allow those cats to survive to try and control the population. We certainly appreciate your questions, your comments, your requests as they relate to Voodoo. We certainly want to provide a space to answer your questions and meet your requests and help you to connect with other leaders and elders within the practice and the tradition. We have a team that travels back and forth to Benin, that travels back and forth to Haiti, and many other locations, Puerto Rico, Brazil. And so we invite you to take this time to get serious about your journey, your spiritual journey, and your lineage. Do your DNA work. We often pull at Orisha and pull at Yoruba culture because languages and ethnic groups. So indeed, we are not all Yoruba. Some of us are Khan, Fan, Ewe, Ga, many other ethnocultural lineages. And so do your DNA work. Find out indeed who you are and where your people are from, and get a strong basis of understanding and foundation within the dynamics of those traditions. And understand that our DNA is full of lineage, and often not just one. I believe, almost 85% Africa, from more than one region of Africa. But I'm also, I think, about 17% Western European, less than 1% indigenous to the Americas. And so certainly there are other ancestral guardians that walk with us. In doing my 23andMe, which goes back the furthest in time in terms of DNA ancestry. Ancestry.com only covers to about the 1500s. 23andMe goes back to Neanderthal. So they can tell you how much Neanderthal blood you have, as well as other ethnic regional variants that might show up in your blood. So my earliest DNA ancestors were Southeast Asian. We know that there was a migration out of the continent of Africa, not only into Europe, into Asia, but also into Australia and other types of humanoids developed from that. At some point, mixing with humanity, with humans, and creating the diversity that we see and experience today. It was after my ancestors from Southeast Asia began to migrate out of that area west, back into Africa and towards Europe, that the African gene pool entered my DNA chart by way of 23andMe. I've only taken Ancestry.com and 23andMe. I have not taken many of the other newer platforms that are now available. I'm curious about African ancestry. And then there's a few others that have a strong scientific basis to them that I'm curious about. But those are the two that I've taken so far, and they've been extremely helpful, not just in locating lost family and relatives, primarily by way of Ancestry.com, siblings, first cousins, my mother's siblings, my father's siblings, I mean, people that I really did not know until I took the DNA test. And then 23andMe, again, gives you a much broader context of the ancestral footprint that shows up in your DNA going back to the Neanderthal period. So I invite you to do that. It's been very powerful for me and for many in my house and many others that I've communicated with about the DNA journey. I meet people every day by way of Ancestry.com and 23andMe who I don't know, um, who are distant relatives to me, but they're surprisingly often curious about ATR or already, involved in ATR in some way. Many of you remember me bringing a co-host to the podcast about 5 years back. May he rest in our room. He has passed on, and that's why we kind of took the break as we did from doing the podcast. But me and Olu here we are. There we go. Yeah, we met, me and my cousin, my former co-host, um, met by way of Ancestry.com. And he grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I didn't know I had family even in that region of Tulsa, Oklahoma until he and I met. So I strongly support and invite you all to check out and do your DNA homework and utilize some of this technology and these sources that are available to us. I saw a video on TikTok today, and a sister was talking about um, the 40 acres and a mule and the reparations idea, and the idea that some of you are just kind of sitting back and waiting for it to happen. And you think that at some point, the government is going to uh, do the right thing, and then they're just going to, like COVID, cut some checks and send them out. That is not going to be the case. And if you cannot validate your ancestral footprint before I believe it's 1850 was the first census. So you need to be able to draw a line in your ancestry back to at least 1850 in order to be prepared to qualify for any reparations that might be given as a result of the Middle Passage and enslavement in America. Welcome back, King Solomon.
All righty.
I don't know what happened. We just kind of blinked and you were gone.
Yeah, this phone.
Yeah, we have 15 minutes left in the show. I certainly appreciate anything you want to bring to the platform today. And I invite questions and comments from the listeners.
Like I said, I'm just strongly into this. We have to do this and coming together. And the only way we're going to do it is through all forms of ATR, whether it's Voodoo, Voodoo, Santeria, whatever. That's the only way we're going to get past this and get better. And as far as us getting money for the slaves that came on that slave trade,
mm-hmm.
I don't think that's going to ever happen because it was designed for it not to happen. There was a lot of money sent for the word nigger not to be used. And that's where the representation come in from. That's where we get our money from. There. Remember, the Indians were called a red man. That's a form of being called a nigger. And if you could prove that you're a DNA of a red man, they to this day they still get their money. They still get money, free medical, they get land, and they still intact with their culture and still intact with their religion. We separated us from not having the culture. We separated us from not doing HR. We separated us from coming to New Orleans and not coming to Congo Square. We separated, and I'm not tripping that when I go on Sundays, it's a lot of white people doing this. This is our way of life. Everybody want a piece of us. Everybody want a piece of us. We made it that way because we don't come together. Now, I'm guilty of, I'm sick, I get in trouble, I have a problem, so I'm calling my ancestors. This has to be, I have to call them and uplift them every single day of my life. Then I'm not going to have these problems that I'm having. I'm not going to have these problems that I'm having. I have to understand everything that's going on in the culture. I'm not going to have these political problems. We're not going to have these problems where our kids are going to school and they're being misinformed, miseducated, and molested. They've been touched when they're by the kid, by the people in the neighborhood. They've been touched by uncles and women that's on drugs have these boyfriends. The girls see in Miami, the girls go to strip club at young. They dance. Here is more of a molestation and this and that. These things will not stop until we connect back what was before us. Okay, I do understand we said it ain't gonna be traditional, but some things in tradition has that stand for the day. And we not gonna get it, and they're gonna keep walking over us and keep walking over. Ancestor, why is it happening? I could be nice. My ancestors looking down right now. I'm looking at all my relatives right now. That's on the ground. I'm looking at y'all. Y'all just don't get it. But as soon as we get in trouble, we get it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We come on Sundays and go to Congo Square. We get it. As soon as the Congo Square ends, I'm back to doing something I don't got no business doing.
And that's the same thing we brought over from the church. We saw that demonstrated in the church. And so I've always been concerned that some of our people are bringing that same behavior out of church and expecting that and manifesting that within ATR. And so you got to renew your whole mind, and your whole way of being to operate in these traditions.
When I first started this, I was hustling in Miami. I had a spot I had a spot in Ocala, Florida. And I met this dude from Miami. We became like brothers. Nobody could never tell us we were brothers. He had the electrics on. And he was doing his thing. And I got to the point, he started getting a little woman, he started relaxing. So I said, man, let's go get this money. I grabbed him. Man, he went off. He explained to me what there was. He explained to me what it was about. And I started being interested in this. But when I first jumped into this, I had my leg case, I was doing a shoe, I was doing Obatala, Igun. I had got some warriors from Carolina. And I was into this, man. I had no issue. I had no problem. I'm talking about I was in a foreign place because I had stopped hustling and selling drugs in Miami, and I came to Carolina. From Carolina to Atlanta, back to Miami to back here. And I have not made that connection because of my health. And now I'm realizing I won't have no health problems if I just deal with my ATR, deal with my herbs, deal with calling them every single day. And man, when I get in here, when I really get in my Ifa morning prayers, because I have my hand in Ifa. When I really get into it, it's back to back to back to back. I really do this every day. When I don't do it, I feel empty. I feel empty. And that's something that when these platforms that y'all on, I want us to start really teaching and telling us this. Because when I was doing my ORE, and now I'm learning about my crop, I feel empty when I don't do it. Man, what the fuck? Hold on, bro. I'm sorry. Somebody might. I don't even play this type of shit here.
All right.
Excuse me.
Somebody's at your door at this time of night. Yeah, you got to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, let me see what's happening.
Take your turn. Yeah, this has to be something that we do consistently. And we can't do it consistently like we did church. This ain't church. It's very different than church. There are indeed as Solomon was mentioning, Ori is something that we do sometimes daily, but at least every 4 days. And for those who understand the ritual calendar that is applied in these ATR traditions, there is something unique and specific to be done, to be addressed every day, depending on your initiations, where you are in your journey, and your knowledge of the tradition that you are operating in. So there's a prayer, there's a ritual, there's a cleansing, there's a form of divination, there's something that can be done, should be done every day. So again, like your diet, like your hygiene, it becomes a part of you, um, almost without thinking about it. Earlier on, you have to sort of plan for it and schedule it in, and some have challenges, with the language, learning the Yoruba or the Fan or the Ewe or the Haitian Creole can be a challenge. I'm still challenged with learning Creole. I learned a little French in high school and in college, which doing something new. We understand the challenges of doing something new, doing something different, taking on a practice that might seem unfamiliar to you. But if you find the appropriate godparents, the appropriate Oluwa, the appropriate Mambo and Hogan, the appropriate Ianifa Babalao, they're going to take the time to make sure you understand what's happening, what's being said, what's being done. And they're going to share that information, teach that information in a way that you can grasp it. I have the blessing of being the son of a retired educator. I learned a lot from my mother about teaching, learning, study, education. I'm been diagnosed with what autism, and so my mother had to develop a system of learning for me, even as a child, where I could develop and still operate in that space, public school space with other children. And so I bring a lot of that wisdom and experience to my own house and how I teach. My average basic reading is 90 minutes or more, an hour and a half or more, um, often 2 hours. And a great deal of it is because I'm teaching and explaining what we're actually doing, what we're actually processing, and how that process is done. So many of you have had EFOD divination before, have no idea how that really works. And it's a reason why so many people avoid really getting serious about the practice. They think that tarot cards is easier, which it isn't. I find that many people are operating using tarot cards, don't even understand the science, the history, the system behind tarot. And they've got pretty pictures, and they're, I see and I feel and I sense, and it's not even authentic to the tarot system. But Fa divination, Afa divination, Dafa divination, Ifa divination, it's complex. It's absolutely complex. And the work on your memory, um, man, Nigerians, Yoruba have some profound memories. It's almost like studying the Bible to memory, or how some Muslims have learned to chant and sing the Quran, the scriptures. You know, when they start that Bismillah Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, and then they start holding their hand up to their ear and singing in that tonal voice, they're actually singing and chanting the Quran. So in doing that, they have mastered memorizing the entire book. And so voodoo is no different. Ifa is no different. You learn those 16 principal odus, and then you learn the proverbs, the airway, the recipes, the fix, the repairs, the taboos that come with each of those 16 principal signs. And when they're cast twice on the board, or when you cast the divining chain, or when you beat the palm nut and mark the odus in the dust, in the erosible powder, you have 256 possible combinations that can land on the board. And so the mental power, memory power is phenomenal in Nigerian Babalaos and Iyanifas. We just must develop a system of repetition. And certainly we know that rhythm, sound, harmony plays a critical role for how we learn things. We're often amazed by how children can learn every word, you know, of the most profane hip hop or rap song, uh, but then we struggle to get them to digest the material that's being administered in school. And as a child with autism, that was the case. What was going on in the classroom didn't make sense to me. The behavior of the other kids didn't make sense to me. And how we were being taught and instructed did not meet the needs of the individual. They were designed to meet the needs of the group. And often on a curve, you got a percentage of that group that's getting it and excelling it, but then you have another percentage of the group that's not getting it. And if there's not that hands-on attention, that independent attention to understanding how your student learns, then yes, that can be a challenge. Even in the dynamic of how I word my emails, it's designed to make it easier for you to capture the information, memorize the information, and then apply that information for yourself when it's necessary. But we'll talk about that a little bit more on another night. I actually have a consultation shortly, so I am going to have to leave right at the top of the hour. Uh, Beloved King Solomon hasn't returned. I hope everything is okay. I had him on mute, but I don't hear any background noise, so I hope things are okay. That's great, Maceo, that you speak French fluently. I think Americans in general need to learn more languages, need to speak other.
Apologize for that, brother. But I'm going through I still got to be a father no matter what. So, but yeah, and like that situation that just happened, I usually get mad and upset, but I'm still a father, and my ancestors in the ancestral realm, they my mother and parent. Why would I show any difference to what I'm here in a physical form, and they doing the best they doing for me, and I'm the one causing these issues.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first time since I started back in this class and started really getting into what I supposed to get into, and back dealing with Dr. Elder Reggie, I realized that I ain't got to call nobody but call them. All I do is get back into this way of life, and now me and her are we on a peace. We working on each other. We becoming great parents, and whatever happened after that happened.
Give thanks. Give thanks.
And
I'm sorry, forgive me. Maceo, I didn't know until I was in my 30s. My mother didn't tell me until I was in my 30s. She felt that if I knew that would further influence my behavior negatively. So I was actually in my 30s before my mother even told me that had even taken place in my youth. And The Alchemist How to go about finding godparents. First, you must become a part of the practice and the tradition. So, where you are, where you live, find out what legitimate elays may be present, find out what publicly accessible ceremonies that they may be having. In the case where you live in a rural area or in a place where that might not be available, certainly you can reach out to me or to other practitioners who are authentically operating in these traditions, and they can assist you in developing godparents. It is a part of initiation. It should be a part of initiation. Um, I talk to a lot of people every day, and sometimes I get some shady responses when it comes to people's initiations, people's godparents, because I started asking questions. Where are you godparents? Why are you coming to me if you've been initiated? And often, there's some breakdown in the relationship, some breakdown in the communication, or some breakdown in the house. Sometimes it's over language. Some of these houses being
You're breaking up. You off. You there? You off, Prince.
outside the country to other nations to be initiated and develop relationships with folks. But again, there's often that language barrier, the cultural barrier, and then once they get back to the US, um, there's often not that ongoing regular communication with these folks who travel to West Africa and come back with these initiations. And so many of them come back with stuff, elekis and pots and taurines and implements, but no knowledge whatsoever about what it is, how to use it, what it means, what roles it really plays in the tradition. And then they start seeking out people like me to sort of fill in that gap. So, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, um, you should try and acquire godparents before you initiate as a part of your learning the practice, the language, the culture, and the tradition. But certainly, upon initiating authentically, there's always godparents. And if that's not part of the equation, you've been hoodwinked. I've been initiated into more than one tradition. So I have several godparents, male and female. In Haitian, godparent. In the West African voodoo traditions, I have a female godparent and a male godparent. And there should always be elders, leaders, people who can help to validate your experience, answer your questions about your experience, fill in the blanks about your experience. It's really tough to come into this space with no knowledge and then put all of your trust into a practitioner, often whom many of you don't know. And I'm going to use myself for an example. I don't know many practitioners that are as publicly available as I am. My whole life is public record. My mother has written a book. My sister Wapani has written a book about our lives. I've done more than 7 documentaries. I've done several TV shows, movies, music videos, TV commercials. Many of the practitioners that I run into, and particularly where people are initiating, develop these relationships, and then fall into some problem, we don't know anything about their lives. We don't know anything about their integrity. We don't know anything about how they move in the community. So it's a real dangerous thing to come into these practices and these traditions to link up with some random person that you done found on Instagram, you know, who may have popped into your DMs claiming the ancestors had a message for you. And then they get defrauded. And then they come back to me, you know, as if I'm supposed to fix it, you know. So, yes, by all means, seek not just godparents, but examples of people who are operating authentically in the tradition that you are seeking to be initiated in. Experience their ceremony, experience their gatherings before you make your decision.
I have a question. Do you think that happens because people really don't want to teach? I mean, you know, when I first came into New Orleans, and when I would go to Congo Square, I didn't really understood the power of Congo Square. You could see it, but then when you get a number to call, it's not really an answer. It's like a brush off. Mm-hmm. And I think that is why people get to jump in your DM, because as soon as you put on your page, Facebook, that like you interested in this, here we go. Yeah, I'm Babala, such. Asé is hoping to give you a message. Soon as you put that on there, here they come. And I just don't understand. I know you paid your dues, you got this, you got that, and all this, even Elder Reggie paid his dues, you got, but I just don't see people really want to just give their time freely to just really making sure just get across the perfect, authentic way. The simple thing to teach is teach somebody vibrations. Mm-hmm, the simple thing to teach somebody that you want to call your answer, you want to do your prayer, you get up every morning. I had a lady told me that I deal with. She said that a good Babalawo gonna get up 3 o'clock every morning. He gonna start his day. And I listened to this guy. The mouth of the day opened about 1:30 a.m. Get up and start doing it. And I noticed when I was doing these things, man, nothing couldn't touch me yet when the sun came up. Nothing couldn't touch me when the sun came up. But once again, when we fall off track, problems come. And that's why I come here, I come to these platforms, I come to reinvent myself, I come to learn, I come to educate I have 3 sons, 10, 9, and 6. My middle son just turned 9 the 3rd of this month, and my 6-year-old will be 7 on March 27th. And when they always say, people say, Asé O, and they scream, get the sage and light it. And I got to put forth more effort, but I think that it's people right here in New Orleans that have this, but people don't want to give it. And I think now, because of what's going on, this is why I think ATR, Voodoo, and politics are always going to run neck and neck. Because if you into your politics, if you're into your culture, if you're into your ancestors, you're going to know just which way to go. If you can't do nothing without this world, I think, as far as us as a race of people without this. Because this is going to stop us from being sick. It's going to stop us from, I mean, come on, there's so much in the world today. Listen, man, I'm at Ancestor Market every day. I used to be there every day before I just got this sick. I got a girl coming to me, she's 14 years old. She just went to run the broom. I said, Ancestor, what the hell? Who am I? Who am I to tackle on this? And let me tell you, there's no help out there. There is no help out there for the problems that I see kids face that come to me to get water, want something to eat. And I think the help has to be, I believe in my heart, I know the help has to be ATR. Why is Congo Square there in the middle of a shelter? That has to be a reason. I mean, the kids are there, they do the thing, but they ask questions. Nobody giving the answer. And we have to teach.
Several answers to that. I think that that one, it works both ways. Not only are people not willing to teach, people are not willing to learn. Number 2, I think, without pointing anyone out individually, some of the people that you're referencing don't have anything to teach. As I said, just because you had enough money and a passport to go to Nigeria and come back, or to go to Ghana and come back, doesn't mean that you have anything to teach. Doesn't mean that you learned enough to pass that information on. Because again, a lot of people are doing it because it's popular, for the look, it's a fad, just like dreadlocks. You know, when I dreaded my hair, you know, it was religion, it was culture, it was revolution. But somewhere towards the mid 90s, right around, you know, India Reid, Jill Scott, right around that time, everybody now is wearing naturals, is wearing dreads, but it does not speak in any way to consciousness. Just because you got dreads don't mean you conscious about Black history, or even understand what the dreads are about. It's just a look now. I feel the same way about Ilekis. I often will not call them Ilekis when I'm having conversation with regular folk. I just say beads. I only call them Ilekis when I'm talking to legitimately initiated folk. If you're on TikTok, Instagram, with your cleavage out and your Ilekis bubbling over, you got on beads. That's
I got you.
Very Ilekis. That's not how
Your character. I got you. And I don't know if you're still talking, but you broke up.
your house, who might know what initiation you've received, what orishas you've been initiated into, but they're not, you know, like gold crosses, which made the transition from religion to fashion. And somewhere in the 70s, everybody was wearing gold and silver crosses, and wasn't Christian at all. So it's that kind of thing where the appropriation kicks in, the bastardization kicks in, the commercialization kicks in. People are in this tradition for the money of it. Oh, well, I can get money for things. Oh, I can get money for, you know, giving spiritual baths. Oh, I can make some money, you know, selling some wrapped up sage. But it does not speak in any way to people's knowledge, to people's wisdom about these practices and these traditions. And that's a reason why I'm so hard on botanicals. Listen, I get it. In a capitalist society, people have to make their income. Okay, but let's be honest about these botanicas. Often they are operated by business owners, not practitioners, people who decided they could make a living selling products. It's very rare that you go into these shops and those people are actually operating in the practices and the traditions for the supplies in which they are selling. So just because you can don't mean you should. Just because you can go in there by, you know, what looks like a cement issue implement with a hole in it. Well, it's the reason it's got a hole in it. It's empty. It's a shell. It's a pie shell with no pie. Okay.
Got you.
Those implements have to be used ritually in ceremony, usually by your godparents, your leaders, your Babalao, your Mambo, your Hogan, before they're given to you. So the idea that, you know, as American, or I can just walk in the Botanica and buy my own and set up my own and do it my way, you will always run into problems. You will always run into problems. I've really got to go, y'all. We're 15 minutes over, and I've got an appointment waiting on me as we speak. I certainly appreciate you all for being here with us and sharing another hour of revolutionary hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. I look forward to meeting you here again tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. And I invite you to visit us at www.vodouday.org, remembering that the U is the most important letter, the YOU, and we invite you to come and be a part of this powerful historic event. Until next time, remembering that all is truly and indeed a blessing. If you can just see beyond the veils, for it is all just an illusion and a test and one of the greatest divine mysteries of this life cycle. Asé, Asé O, and Odavo. Honor and respect. Therese Lopez, honor and respect. Maceo, honor and respect. D Goddess, honor and respect. The Alchemist, honor and respect. My beloved co-host, King Solomon, honor and respect. Until next time, always a blessing.